Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to show you two of my quick and simple go-to cards when I need cards for boys or men, masculine looking cards, a little bit something not quite so feminine. So I'm going to use some of the Tim Holtz watercolor paper today, and one side has a bit of tooth to it in texture and one side is completely smooth. I'm always using the completely smooth side. Now I have picked out 4 distress oxides. I have something along the lines of Chipped Sapphire, Salty Ocean, Cracked Pistachio and Mermaid Lagoon. But any 4 colors, any type of watercoloring, anything you want to do here, watercolors are going to work perfectly fine. You could use watercolor pencils, you could use alcohol markers, use anything. But all I'm going to do is pop a little bit of each ink pad down onto an acrylic block. Now these cards today are kind of my go-to easy options when, like I might not know the person that well or something and I don't really know a theme that I can go for, so I just keep it pretty generic, and this is kind of my go-to option. Also, this is one that I find my family tend to pick first out of my stash when they come and grab cards and things, so it's always a popular one. Now here with some plain water, I have drawn a kind of like a loose big puddle shape, I guess, with water first, and this is going to help my colors move a little bit. It is also going to restrict my colors from going any further. For example, if I just sprayed my whole watercolor sheet there with water, then there's no boundaries for the color to stay inside of, and I want there to be a big clear border around the outside. So all I do is kind of go back and forth, making sure that the colors are a little bit blended in between, not a perfect blend at all, I'm not worried about that. And I just kind of go back and forth, making sure there is enough color on there, blending them a little bit, making sure I've still got that really strong border around the outside. I am going to trim these down ever so slightly, so I have got that in my mind as well. I tip it and kind of move it around a little bit so that things blend a little bit naturally by themselves, and that also helps too. Now here is the second option if you're more of an ink blender rather than watercoloring. Now what I love to do, this is just thin copy paper or computer paper or something really nice and thin, and I just want to tear a similar shape from this copy paper, so kind of like a overly rectangular sort of shape. You can do whatever you like. You could do a big circle. I'm going to have both of these cards are going to be landscape, so if you wanted to do a portrait, then you could obviously turn this around or make it a bit more of a circle, or you could make it into a proper square. Sometimes it helps me when I'm ripping to kind of draw on with pencil exactly where I want the ripping to go, and that way I can guide it a little bit better to create that shape, because sometimes when I'm just ripping away it can be I don't end up with exactly what I thought I would. So once I think I have roughly what I want and I've kind of torn away all the little bits, I really love the torn edge. If you want a sharp clean edge, then you can just use some like a die to die cut it out, or you can use your trimmer, and then that way you can get those nice sharp clean edges. Now this is the Tombow removable adhesive. This is my absolute favorite, and I'm just going to glide some of this around the back here just a little bit so that it sticks down on my page whilst I am ink blending. You could also rip this out of masking paper if you wanted to, but for me it's just because I don't intend on keeping this mask, it seemed like a good option just to use some copy paper and removable adhesive. So I'm just going to make sure all of the edges are nice and sealed. I kind of make sure I press around them, and then just for a good kind of comparison, I'm going to use the same colors that I used the first time around, but obviously you can go for gold. Now here it's debatable whether I should have gotten out I could have gotten out the larger ink blending domed foams, or I just use my finger daubers. Now because my finger daubers are so handy and I literally just have to take them out of a little case, I don't have to flap around with getting the domes off the end of the blenders or switching them around or anything, or getting ink on my fingers. I always lean towards my daubers. So now it's up to you obviously, and if you are more of a watercolor, or you could use alcohol markers, you could use even some acrylic paint, and you could brayer it on like this. Just whatever you have, I'm sure you are able to make it work. You could get some acrylic paint and just sponge it on. You could just paintbrush it on. So many different ways. I'm sure you have something that you're able to kind of make this design with. So we've got the two finished options here, the watercolor on the right and the ink blended on the left. Now I do want to do a couple of extra things before I especially take off that mask from the left hand one. I have got some of the Lunar paste. I think this is the Slippery When Wet, and I will tell you this is the best gold kind of flicking paint paste, whatever you want to call it, that I have at all. Any of my pastes do not even match up to the shine of this one. This is from Hurley, and although I do use it through stencils and things like that, I love when I splatter this gold shine. This is absolutely gorgeous. The shine on this is incredible, and it's kind of that warm, gorgeous gold color. So once I've got a few splatters, I can happily take off my mask, and I have those nice crisp edges that I was after. I decided not to do the splatters to the other one, but neither here nor there. You either can or you don't have to either. Now this is the Celebrate Words Fancy Dies from Hero Arts. And these sets, in my opinion, are the versatile ones because it has these gorgeous little scripty words. I also have an option at the end in case you don't have something like these words already with dies. So I will show you that in a minute, but I'm just going to pop these down the bottom, and just for the sake of ease for the video, I'm going to use one that says birthday and one that says happy, and then I will show you how I finish these off right to the end finished cards. I'm using a little bit of low-tack tape. This is the mint tape because I know this is not going to rip my work once I have done it. And all I do is I die cut it out, pop a little bit of that low-tack tape on the back, and then pop it out because for this technique we want to keep all of those little end pieces inside the letters from the B and the A and the D and things like that. So we want to keep all of them exactly in place, and for me it's easy to lose them if I just put them on my desk, so it's best for me to pop them on that low-tack tape. Then I decide to round off a couple of the corners, and then of course I try it and I think I will need all of them done. Again, all of these little touches are just personal preference. You don't have to do these at all. You might have like a decorative corner that would look really cool that does like photo corners and things. That would also look really good. I have a couple of card bases here that are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm going to use some liquid glue. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and I pop it inside those little glue bottles, and I'm putting this panel down nice and flat. Now you may wonder why I have kind of a white on white border. I like that look, and I still think it really stands off the card. Even though there is no foam tape behind these, I still think I like having that little border around the outside, and it does mean that my cardstock, if I did it like straight onto my card base, that my cardstock might get a bit warped, and so I just choose to do it on a piece of watercolor paper. Now this is the All the Birthday stamp set because I'm sure if you've seen a video of mine before, you've probably seen this stamp set, but I'm just going to stamp birthday underneath there in some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then I'm going to stamp happy up above this one, and that will make happy birthday as well. As I said, these are just 2 birthday cards, but you could not have them as birthdays. They could be anything. You could even have these as thinking of you with gorgeous colors, with nice muted tones, and even like a little foliage leaf or two. I can kind of see it all in my head now, but I just thought I would show you these couple of options, and then you can kind of run with the technique and make it your own as well. Then I went ahead and die cut out some of these words just in plain white cardstock. Now just for ease of putting these together, I did add some Stick It double-sided adhesive, which is just a really, really thin double-sided adhesive that die cuts really well on the back of cardstock. Some double-sided adhesives can be a little bit too thick when you're running them through die cutting, and I just find it makes life a little bit trickier. If I'm going to die cut them, I want them to be really, really clean cuts. So I really like that the Stick It adhesive is so thin. Now this one here is the first birthday, so what I've done is I've put all 4, I think, die cuts together to make that big thick one, and then I'm going to glue on my die cut one from my watercolored piece as well, and you can see how thick that piece is. It's beautiful and thick. Then I peel off the Stick It adhesive from the back of my last die cut that I did, and this looks really good as is, but I think adding in those little bits inside the B and the D and the A are going to just finish it off, and of course that little tail on the Y. So all I have to do is just pop a little bit of glue on the inside of each one, and then because these are really little, I'm just going to use a pair of reverse tweezers and pop those inside pieces in, and this is like die cut inlay, so it is nice and continuous. I think the word stands out enough Sometimes you need to add a decent amount of dimension for the word to stand out, especially if you are not going to change the colors at all. So that's why I think it's worth doing. I think that's 5 layers of cardstock all up. So I did 4 underneath plus the 1 layer that is the actual one I die cut out of our piece. So same here, I'm going to layer up these 4 with the word happy, and then I will use the happy that I have from our ink blender piece for this one. So I definitely do think it's worth taking the time to cut out those extra words, and for me it's worth putting the stickered adhesive on the back as well, because that just means less liquid glue and things around, but just whatever you have on hand and whatever works for you. I'm going to pop the middle of those A, P and Y back in too, and then this card is going to be nearly complete as well. Now if you didn't have the word happy and birthday as dies, you could always use alphabet dies. Now these were the ones I was going to use. This is the typewriter font from scrapbook.com. I have the lowercase and the uppercase, and those are the ones that I was going to use until I saw I had this one, which actually worked out perfectly. So that gorgeous shine from the gold, I love that ripped look, but the watercolor look looks just as fine. And actually I think I splattered a few white splatters on this one after I had finished filming this. Anyhow, I have all of the links down below if you would like to check out any of the supplies that I used in today's video. Other than that, let me know what you think, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!